Hi everybody, welcome back to the Tactical Series Episode 1, Part 2. This is Runes versus Epics. What we're doing now is we're going to build our alternate team to the undead team. The goal with this was to pick a team that didn't have any epic weapons at all, because we want to compare runes versus epics. So the first hero that I take here is actually going to be Yasmin. She's going to serve as my replacement for Yorick. Yorick, for all intents and purposes, is the healer for the undead team, so I needed to have a healer for this team as well. General Krex is going to be the substitute for Hansuke. I wanted somebody who's armored as well as green and the same speed. I chose him over the other dwarf guy because he's got one extra, he's a little bit better, I guess. And then I chose Zam. Zam's going to stay the same. He is runed up on this one. I didn't pull his runes off. And then to match that of Brahm, I actually brought in Kozar. So right now, Yasmin, Krex, and Kozar are unruned. And actually, I think Krex might have just a couple of junk runes on him that I had from testing out. But the point of this run here is going to be to say, let's say we don't choose the heavily runed up undead team, but we choose a team that has the exact same competition in terms of two normal heroes and two slow heroes with the exact same color composition. So the goal is, if I took this team, would this team be viable for running the same dungeon? So the whole point of this tactical series is going to ultimately be, should we, work on tactics over, necessarily gear and stuff like that. So one of the reasons that I ultimately decided to make this series was to basically play to the strength of, it's always good or better to be a smart player than somebody who's heavily geared up. This video is going to be sort of a testament to that, because here we are using three characters that really have no business being in boss mode without any types of runes, and then Zam is kind of along just to sort of carry the team. Now I will say ahead of time that if Zam was not ruined out, I don't know that this team would have been able to beat this dungeon. The original goal here was to basically see what the survivability was, and I was going to show you, say, here's what it is. You don't have any runes, you're not going to be able to beat boss mode. That was the underlying hypothesis here. Just as sort of a spoiler alert, this team does actually beat this dungeon. So even though I have three guys that don't have any runes carrying along with Zam, I still managed to beat it. And Zam does some pretty decent damage here. But it's worth noting that really what I'm going at is I'm using tactics to try and best survive this. So anytime I have skills come up, I'm basically analyzing every single turn and be like, should I attack or should I use some sort of a skill? And so using your knowledge of the heroes is obviously smart. I didn't have a lot of experience with either Kozar or Krex. That's part of the reason I picked these guys. I wanted to show you that it doesn't have to be somebody that you use all the time and know in and out, and you know how much damage they can take and what sort of attacks they can dish out. These guys here, I really had no expectations. I knew that Krex was going to be similar to Hansuke. He was going to be armored and, take a decent amount of damage and maybe every once in a while do a decent attack. And Kozar, I only know him from friend heroes in terms of people using home run, and he dishes out a ton of damage. But without runes, the real question is, how effective is Kozar without runes? And you'll see from this run here that he doesn't do a ton of damage other than that last skill, really. So obviously Kozar is rune dependent in my opinion. So as far as going through this, like I said, it's not much in terms of there's nothing really super exciting here. So if you want to fast forward through this dungeon, you certainly can. I'm going to stick with the commentary along here just to avoid having to try and deal with the video editing. And plus, if I fast forward, you won't get to see any near misses and stuff like that. So, like I said with Krex, the main thing is to basically don't attack red guys and try to use abilities whenever possible. Zam is kind of not really out of his element, but he doesn't really fit the team composition here, because normally Zam's big thing is to buff his undead allies, and then if you need to, you can use the Taste for Brains to to heal them a little bit. Well, Zom's heal here isn't going to heal anybody except for himself, so that's kind of why Yasmin's there. She's going to be the designated healer, so I was very wary about doing any sort of taunting here. You can see this was probably the closest instance of Yasmin about dying. She certainly is susceptible, but I ultimately felt that if I did any sort of taunts, I was worried that there was going to be too many repeated attacks before I could actually kill them. Because the only attacker that I have really is Zom, he doesn't get to go until after the normal heroes, so it's a dangerous game to allow a bunch of red heroes to attack Krex, and I really wasn't sure about what Kozar's ability is, and actually I don't even think Kozar has a taunt, which I think was one of the main complaints about him, but like I said, I don't use Kozar that much. I don't know what his main strengths are. But so far, so good. Like I said, we had the near death with Yasmin, but she should be able to come back from the brink here now that I heal her, plus she has a shield on her. So we're on the last room before the boss fight. The boss fight is going to be the challenging one because we don't put out enough damage, and we can only use one friend hero. So that Rampage is probably about the worst skill that you can get because it's going to hit all of your guys. If you don't have ruined up heroes, the Rampage can actually hit pretty hard, which is kind of a bummer. So normally I would try to kill them first, but honestly, as long as there was a bunch of them out there, it really didn't matter who you killed as long as you could try and secure some kills here. I decided to try and use elemental advantage with Yasmin to attack the red pig. Didn't really do much. You can see it basically did nothing. I was confident in Zom using his special attack there and take one out and then basically just finish up here. Obviously, if you can get into the boss room full health, that's what I'm trying to do here. It's not always going to be possible. It depends on the dungeon you're running and the team you're bringing. So, was it worth it to use Tail Strike here? Maybe, maybe not. I felt like it maybe could have been used in the next room against the first boss, but that's kind of a risk I was willing to take. So after I assessed the situation, that's really when I was going to see, like after the friend hero, what I wanted to do at that point. So we got to the boss room unscathed with our basically non-ruined or at least 1/4 ruined alternate team. And so the same rule is going to apply here. We're going to use Kozar to break this guy down a peg here and hopefully get out here without too much trouble. So honestly, I really never expected to be able to clear this dungeon without a heavily ruined team. Anybody that's been watching my boss mode series knows that some of these dungeons without a solid team is just, it seems like it's impossible. And you'll actually see very soon when I post Angzon's Pit that there is one dungeon that is just an absolute nightmare to do. So here comes Kozar. He's going to do his lower defense, which is what I'm really counting on. And he didn't do a ton of damage to the bull, which is moderately disappointing. Had I had Tail Strike here, I don't think it really would have mattered. He probably still would have had a ton of health left over. So now it's just a matter of killing these guys. I ultimately chose to not use my energy potions because I wanted to get a better sense of, okay, if I don't have any potions left because team died or I brought along all revive potions, something like that, I wanted to see how is this going to fare if my back is truly up against the wall. So I didn't use any energy potions there to basically try and get some cheap shots. Now I could have reset both Kozar and Zom and maybe killed this guy. But Kozar survives it pretty well, which is, he's pretty heavily defended. But now that we're electric skin, now things are going to get a little bit dicey. So Zom's got his Taste for Brains up, which is a pretty powerful spirit attack. So even without Mark for Death, that's good enough to kill him. Unfortunately, the heal doesn't heal anybody else, though. But it heals him. And now we're going to get down to the last couple attacks here. Without runes, Kozar's home run just, it does not cut it. I'm not going to lie to you. It just does not work. Yasmin, realistically here, I probably shouldn't have healed. I probably should have attacked because she has ×3 undead. I'm not sure that it would have killed him, but it may have prevented this here. So Kozar and Krex both bite the big one here, which is unfortunate. Being that the Echo guy is not immune to Dark, the Septic Claw should be perfectly a fine attack here. And there he goes. So all things considered, I mean, we did have 2 casualties, but if your goal is to say, could I at least beat boss mode with an alternate team? You could, but if you're playing with an alternate team, my guess is so that you could get a 3-star so that you could farm some materials, and that just didn't happen here. So stick around for the next episode. We're actually going to switch things up and add runes to this team and see how it actually fares.